Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 322. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, what the heck is up, Denny's?
This is a comic book podcast, a DC Comics podcast. Our third person, Connor, still not here. Still very good question.
I haven't seen Connor in months.
Yeah. If you're waiting on Patreon books, don't worry. Connor is going to be recording the August Patreon books that he owes this coming Tuesday. So they'll be spliced into next week's episode.
If they aren't day and date comics, you should just do September while you're at it.
Well, I think the hope is that it'll be on an episode sometime in September to do it live.
He's 0 for 1 right now.
That is true. That is true. But we'll see how it goes. But welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse. Coming up on this week's show, we'll be talking about Dark Crisis issue 4, Batman 127, the new champion of Shazam issue 2, Flashpoint Beyond issue 5. I assume Matt's going to talk about Poison Ivy issue 4.
I am.
I never actually asked him, but I just assumed it was.
Yeah.
And Dark Knights of Steel, Tales from the Three Kingdoms issue 1 rounds out this week's list of books. So there you go. That's what's happening. It's also worth mentioning, this is not really related to DC, but it is going on as we record. D23's big panel that's going to have a bunch of 20th Century Studios and Marvel stuff is happening. They just finished the Lucasfilm stuff with Indiana Jones 5, I think. So if something huge comes out of that, we might stop and do a bit of breaking news, even though...
Yeah.
Just because it's interesting, rather than, not because it's relevant necessarily, yeah. But, nerd shit's going on.
Yes, indeed.
Yes. The Star Wars part was boring. I mean, I wasn't really paying that much attention. But...
Well, they didn't have a panel at Comic-Con, right? So this is their panel.
Star Wars?
No, Marvel in general.
No, Marvel did. Not remember the big Phase 5 and 6 slides? Man,
I don't remember. I might have got slightly concussed playing football today. I caught a short arm lariat bringing in the ball.
Because they showed the entirety of Phase 5, and they showed a couple of Avengers movies from Phase 6. So maybe the rest of Phase 6 will be announced today. Oh,
that's right.
Yeah?
That's right. It's all the timey-wimey stuff.
Yeah. All the multiverse shenanigans. So maybe there'll be something juicy. I mean, honestly, I'm more interested in the 20th Century Studios part, just in case they do any Alien or Predator stuff. But
yeah.
That's going on right now as we record.
We just had a good Predator movie. We need another good Alien movie. It's been far too long.
Well, hopefully the TV show's good, because Noah Hawley's working on a show.
What is that going to be on?
Hulu / FX. So that kind of
cool.
Which I think is a okay home for it.
Yeah. Oh, that just reminds me. I have a new season of What We Do in the Shadows to watch.
So do I. I've not watched season 4 yet. Yeah.
Me neither. I kept threatening it, and I was like, "Yeah, but if I really like this, then I'm gonna be out of luck." But yeah, I'm very excited.
Yeah. So, yeah, Feige's on stage right now, just for the record. So I guess they're doing Marvel before the end.
Remember when we didn't know how to say his name? Now he's ubiquitous.
Yeah, there was I saw something yesterday or 2 days ago. Whatever the first day of D23 was, there was a Simpsons joke. They made a little short where they were announcing a Simpsons cinematic universe, and it was just Homer doing some Feige related jokes. But he mispronounced his name, which is why I thought of it when you said.
That's pretty great. No, I was feeling real down the other day, and there was something that got brought up that reminded me of Sideshow Bob. So I went back and watched some Sideshow Bob episodes. Early Simpsons still lands. However many years later, 25, 26, those jokes still land. So it's good to know that they're still trying to be relevant.
Yeah, I mean, this little short I saw yesterday was the most Simpsons I've seen in 20 years. That's not true, because that's before I saw the movie when it came out. So,
yeah, that's the last thing I really remember. So I've been with my wife now for about 15 years. That's about the cutoff of watching The Simpsons regularly. But yeah, we went and saw the movie, and the movie underwhelmed, so it didn't bring me back in.
I saw the movie, but when I went to see the movie, and I wasn't even planning to see it, people were going and said, "Do you want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." I think at that point, I hadn't watched a Simpsons episode in at least 5 years when the movie came out. It'd been a long time for me even at that point.
I still try to go out of my way to watch the Treehouse of Horrors because those are always fun. But other than that, it's, I don't know if the jokes land. People are saying that it's good still, but I forget that it's on, honestly. I don't watch a lot of TV live anymore. So, unless it's sports. But yeah, so sometimes I forget.
Yes. They've started off the Marvel section of the panel with a live performance of Rogers the Musical from the Hawkeye show. So
those poor people.
Yeah, good luck with that. They're all there for Marvel news, and they're getting subjected to a subpar musical performance.
This is when they're going to announce Rogers the Musical.
Oh, I would certainly hope not. All right, well, maybe something will happen in 10 minutes, so to kill time, there's always time for a Comixology top 10, everyone.
I got this one this week.
Oh, you do? You feeling confident?
I'm feeling comfortable.
Well, as per usual now, they split up the days, so we'll be looking at DC on its own, and then we'll have a quick glance at the rest of the industry from the Wednesday. So what do you think number one is, Matt, from DC this week?
It's Batman 127.
No, it's not.
God damn. Dark Crisis.
Dark Crisis issue 4 is right now on Comixology, the best-selling DC comic.
In my head, more people are still pulling Batman than they're pulling Dark Crisis. So I took a gamble and I lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, number 2, of course, is Batman 127. Number 3 is Flashpoint Beyond issue 5.
Ooh.
And we actually have a Marvel book, believe it or not, on Tuesday, because it was a graphic novel, Fantastic Four Full Circle by Alex Ross.
Oh.
That's number 4. And then there's some manga book called Abe Coon's Got Me Now, Volume 9 is number 5. Number 6 is Dark Knights of Steel, the one shot. Number 7 is the new champion of Shazam. I'm sad that Shazam especially is underneath Volume 9 of the manga, but whatever. It sells apparently. Number 8 is Batman Dear Detective, which is the Bermejo kind of like covers that have been turned into a story. Number 9 is a book called The Babysitters Club. I
did not know they were making comics of that.
Yeah, Jesse's Secret Language is the particular title of this one. I
can't tell my wife, she's gonna make me get it for her.
Yeah, number 10 is Poison Ivy issue 4. And there's only one thing left that was released on Tuesday, and it is Batman Beyond Neo Year. So that is the worst selling Tuesday book of the week. Just to check in on the Wednesday stuff, to see what Marvel and others are up to. Number 1 from Wednesday is Immortal X-Men issue 6. Number 2 is Axe Death to the Mutants. Is this like a tie-in? Yeah, that's issue 2 of 3.
Yeah, it's the Avengers versus X-Men thing that they're doing.
No, I know, but that's the main book's Axe, whereas I'm like, this is a mini that's tying into it.
Oh, that wasn't the full title. I thought that was the full event.
No. This is a 3-issue mini tying into the main book. And then you got Marauders issue 6 at number 3. Number 4 is Wolverine issue 24.
Okay.
I know Percy was hyping up the oversized issue 25 on Twitter today. I saw that. Number 5 is New Mutants issue 29. The X books are selling very well right now, apparently.
Shocking.
Actually, yeah, even the events part X-Men, so all 5 of that top 5 on Wednesday are all X-Men related in some form. Number 6 is She-Hulk issue 6. Number 7 is Once and Future issue 29. And number 8 is All Out Avengers issue 1. Number 9 is Moon Knight issue 15. And number 10 is Punisher issue 6, which is of 12. That's a mini. Just missing the top 10 is some non-superhero stuff. You got a Star Trek book, issue 400 even, of Star Trek, which is written by Will Wheaton. Is number 11.
You'd love to see it.
Yeah. And Alien issue 1 is number 12. Wait, they renumbered Alien already? What's happening?
And it's a different artist, so you might want to check this out. I might want to check this out.
Yeah, different artist, but it's still Philip K. Johnson, which is obviously a good thing, but it does make me wonder if you still have to, or if you still should read the previous volume to, because it maybe follows on in some way.
Right. Not that it's an anthology because I clicked on it, but it's a brand new. It says Icarus Part 1 of 6.
Okay.
So it doesn't make it sound.
I just wonder if it's still kind of spiritually a sequel in some way, and if you'd be better off reading. It'd be easier to do now that it's all out, to go back and redo the previous.
Yeah, so it says it's an express, or it says Philip Kennedy Johnson and Julius Oda launch a new alien epic. Man, machine, and the most terrifying creature of the universe is an express elevator to hell, and you're going to want to be on it. Doesn't sound like that. That sounds terrifying. A small colony of synths have settled into a secret backwater moon. When a company of United Systems soldiers come to them to help retrieving biotechnology on a hostile planet that could be the key to saving humanity, the synths must decide whether the prospect of peace between man and machine is worth the risk of betrayal. Sounds also like it's a Blade Runner tie-in. Talking about synths instead of replicants.
Mm.
Wayland Yutani's up to something.
I'm always down for more alien material, typically. Although the last couple of movies have been some of the most depressing days of my life, but that's that's neither here nor there. Good thing Connor's not here to make the David joke. We got a new good Predator movie for the first time in my life. I mean, that's not technically true. Predator 2, I was 2 years old when that came out, but
that doesn't count though.
Yeah. From an adult, or even just like from an old enough conscious level to care. For the first time in my life, I got a good Predator / Alien movie, and life's too good. It feels too it's all downhill from here. I think I don't know where to go next. Okay, so there you go. That's the Comixology top 10. It's a pretty. I mean, everything's pretty boring almost to an extent right now, because Marvel, X-Men, pretty much is all top sellers. DC, Batman, and events, and maybe occasionally some. Something else, So.
Yep.
So.
I'm just looking at the Indiana Jones news right now.
Of course you are.
A trailer was shown, so for Indy 5.
And they didn't have a title still?
Still no title yet.
You'd think with the trailer they'd have a title to tack on at the end of it.
I was looking for text from Alden that maybe he had a camera quality for me.
Oh well.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, they're doing Black Panda, Wakanda Forever stuff just now. Just we'll check in between each book or whatever. see what they've shown off. So that's the top 10. I have had a couple of rough days as far as getting sleep goes. Things I've wanted to do, I've not been able to. I've done all right, but it's been a tumultuous couple of days. So.
Yeah, I'm just tired because I went and saw wrestling and then went and played football, and I need a nap, and my throat hurts.
Also, I'm pretty sure I said tumultuous there instead of turbulent. So.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bring it up because you're tired, so I don't want to kick a man while he's down.
It took me 5 seconds to notice I said it, but it did click eventually. So.
Just so if Connor was here, he wouldn't have let it slide.
Oh, I know. He's too busy looking after his new kitten today to.
What?
Yes. See, his girlfriend decided that she wanted a cat. So now
Is he deathly allergic?
We can hope. Now because he was the only person who does shows for Male Fuzz in any capacity that didn't have a cat, and now he does. So everyone has a cat now.
Yeah, mine's right here. She's just chilling.
You get a cat. Tara's got a cat. Tim's got 2 cats. I got 3 cats. David's about to start doing a show. He's got a cat. Yeah. Everyone's got a cat. Yeah. As it should be.
That's when he said he's really allergic to, he calls them evil creatures. And if that's true, we know what Paige's game is.
Oh dear. So follow Connor's Twitter if you want to keep tabs on his new cat dad life, which he's miserable about. So maybe we'll even see it on one of the episodes. It'll invade the recording, and we can all enjoy kitty time.
Hopefully,
together.
It just causes chaos.
I mean, I'm always for that, of course.
Yes.
So. Oh, cool. All right, well, without further ado, I think we can dive into the books then this week. So we'll start off with Dark Crisis issue 4. Joshua Williamson writing with Daniel Sampere on the art. Obviously, this is the big event going on right now. And this issue is a pretty solid mid-chapter in that it's kind of advancing all the various threads that are going on. Has a kind of a big ending that's, nothing necessarily new or special for an event like this, because it's, the Infinite Crisis is reborn. Like, here we go.
Yeah, it's a crisis to its T.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like this is paying homage to the original Crisis on Infinite Earths.
I mean, they all have to some extent, let's be honest.
Yeah, but this one feels especially so. So... I
mean, that's just because Pariah's the villain, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really making you think of that more than any other ones have. So yeah, it starts off, Hal's in the fake Green Lantern world where John Stewart's been kept. And lo and behold, Barry comes running in. So this was timed nicely with the Flash book, where Barry has just become, aware of where he is, and he's running through all these worlds, and I do like his entrance here, where he says you might say Hal's brave, and then turn the page and it's him running in bold. I think the way he pops with the green background, because everything in this world's a construct, does look quite nice. So
looks nice. Also, the amount of disrespect Hal has for Kyle and John and the like was very hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know why.
Well, because they're not real. This is not real Kyle.
Yeah, I know, but I found it funny. Just he was shooting from the hip.
Yeah, so Barry kind of contextualizes things a bit here. All the Justice League are all split up into these worlds, and we have to go get them. So it was nice to have Barry and Hal interact. It felt kind of old school. Felt nice to have this friendship back.
I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen them.
It does feel like it's been a while.
Because Hal's been off doing whatever in whatever book. So, and Barry's been busy. So yeah.
Yeah. So we cut to the sort of the current whatever exists of a Justice League on Earth, which is John and Mr. Terrific and Donna and some of the JSA are there, and they're talking about this dark energy at the end of the edge of the multiverse, which is behind everything, the Great Darkness, all that stuff, and we get kind of into there's maybe more to it implied in this issue. The dark. So the Great Darkness, in theory, shouldn't really have a motive. They compare it to like the Night Sky. The Night Sky and shadows don't have a motive; they just simply are. It's almost like something's corrupted the Great Dark, which sounds like we're going to get a big villain reveal later on, doesn't it?
Yeah. So they were talking like before there was everything, there was the Great Darkness, but the Great Darkness just is, right? Like it just exists. It's not good, it's not bad. It has no goals but to exist, and someone is weaponizing it. So I thought that was a nice. Thought that was a nice little twist, especially considering what we've gotten from like the right hand of darkness and what it did to Darkseid. It's like, who could be this powerful to wield this?
Yeah, I don't know right now. I suspect it'll probably be a big reveal maybe at the end of next issue, given that we're not there yet. But we have Nightwing feeling horrible about Gar, who's lying in a hospital bed, and we get a great little scene with him and Alan Scott, which... It's really nice to have the JSA interacting with these characters being part of the world again, but it's especially nice because we know they're getting a book after this, so it's not like... Because I think part of me would be worried that it would maybe like, okay, they're here, but they're going to be kind of dead at the end of the event or something, because DC don't want to keep them around in any long-term capacity. It's nice to know that in some way they're going to still be around afterwards, so that I don't have to worry about it. It's comforting.
And Alan brings back, since coming back from Earth Omega... So that's in storyline where they've been. Yeah. Is on that other Earth that we saw at the end of the last event. Which I had to go back and remember because it's not like it's been addressed properly since then.
No, it's been a while. I did like a couple of lines of dialogue here. He's trying to give Dick this pep talk to come back and sort of like, lead the troops, as it were. But he talks about how these young characters working with the old ones, these legacy characters, they want to show that they can carry the legacy of those who have fallen. And he puts his hand on Dick's shoulder and says, "But we need the one who did it first." And we always love when Dick's kind of respected as the original legacy character, because he is. He was the first. Robin was introduced in Batman or Detective. Like it's in that first batch of issues.
Yeah, I feel like I should know, but I don't.
Like it's early in the first Golden Age omnibus. It's quite early on, you know.
But yeah, I do like that, and it makes him feel more important. Like he's a keystone of the DCU, and especially coming from Alan Scott, who like when I think of Golden Age, it's him and Jay Garrick that come to mind first.
Yeah, that's the two I think of first.
So that coming from him makes it feel that much special.
Yeah, so this is all very nice. Dick's in silhouette for a lot of this because he's being moody and dark, and it's it's almost like for a moment he's forgetting that he's Dick Grayson and not Bruce Wayne. He's sitting in the shadows, So we get a continuation of the Legion of Doom stuff where Black Adam goes to them because he doesn't believe the young heroes can do what's necessary. And
this jerk.
Yeah, so I actually kind of liked how this progressed, where he comes here, he's trying to convince them, Luthor and all, to help fight Deathstroke and co. because they're working for the Great Darkness, and this is not good for us. We should do something about it. And basically what happens is Deathstroke and all of his army, who notably are all in black chains, so it's it's like they're all being controlled in some way,
right?
Come and fight the Legion of Doom. So we effectively get the attack on Titan's Tower, but with the Legion of Doom here. And just this big battle of the villains, which eventually leads to what looks like all of the Legion of Doom also being infected with the Great Darkness. So presumably next issue, they're all going to be under the control of it.
Right.
So
they didn't fare any better than, or they actually fared less better than the Titans did. So being that they got all infected.
Yep.
So real quick, it was Detective 38 that he came in. So 11 issues. It was within that first year.
Yeah, I knew it was super early. It wasn't long at all. Yeah, and you got Pariah, and he's basically saying that Barry and Hal think they're helping by going and getting all the Justice League members, but them running through the various universes he's made is actually speeding up the process, and the spread of the Great Darkness is also fueling his new multiverse, which he's building. So he's sort of cackling and laughing. Flash and Barry get to an Earth where he believes Batman is here in this sort of like clock-looking world. There's like gears everywhere.
Yeah, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Art Deco, steampunk Earth, which I gotta give Bruce credit.
I wonder if
that being his ideal planet.
See, I'm wondering if there's a swerve here that this is not the real Bruce this year, because we've not had Batman's one-shot yet to confirm that this is his real world, so I'm wondering if they're going to pull a swerve on us where this isn't really him.
Maybe, but when they give us peeks of the rest of them, it looks like the ones that we've seen in it does. Solicits. So
it does, it matches up with the Superman one that we've seen already and stuff like that. But I was just thinking, maybe they're going to swerve us here just because we don't really know if this is Batman's real world yet. But and then we have Alan Scott taking well, it's not really the Trinity, the young Trinity, because it's not Damien. No. It's Dick with Superman and Yara, but he takes them to see Justice League Dark, who are all drunk and miserable about what's going on.
It's Bobo and Constantine, who, let's be real, that's kind of their default states.
Well, yeah, Man-Bat's not there anymore though. Zatanna's apparently dead. So
well, they have a Harry Potter picture of Zatanna because you don't want to make statues with magic people, because that always ends up, which that made me laugh. Because the number of times we've seen statues used as weapons against our heroes is funny. But yeah. Yeah,
so Swamp Thing's there. In fact, two Swamp Things are there. Presumably the newer one that is referenced here has to be Levi.
Yeah, but they never call him by his name. They call him like the Sproutling.
Yeah, well, they never call the other one Alec either, so I mean, we don't really,
that's true.
We just have to take it for, but so I don't know. But he says he's only been in his role a brief time, so unless they're trying to pull some sort of weird thing later, I have to assume this is Levi from.
It's got to be Levi, yeah. So, but yeah.
Yeah, and Swamp Thing references the previous Crisis and all that stuff. We get more of the fight between the Legion of Doom and Deathstroke's forces. So there's a lot of build up in this, and then it wraps up with, as the Legion of Doom are being affected, this is kind of fueling what Pariah is doing, and the final page is the infinite Earths are reborn, and it's all the Earths coming out of his hand. I quite enjoyed this issue as a middle chapter. It doesn't necessarily have like a full story on its own that it feels satisfying by the end, but I liked all of the teases in it throughout. It had 3 plot threads. It kept them all going. and by the end I felt like I got a reasonable chunk of the story. Ultimately, this is the kind of chapter that will read better once you can read the whole thing together. Just by its nature, that's what it is. But I thought the cliffhanger at the end was fun, and felt classic Crisis DC cliffhanger. So I was into that. And I'm always for putting Dick on a pedestal. So anything that any character's giving him a pep talk where they talk about why he's important, I'm always a sucker for it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that it's Swamp Thing that brings up remembering Alexander Luthor. Because what we've seen in the other Swamp Thing books, how he can or in Justice League Dark, he can travel between the multiverses. So I wonder if that's going to come into play maybe later, because the Green's all connected at a certain level. Also, bring up Alexander Luthor here, which this seemed to be his goal in the original, or in Infinite Crisis, was to bring back the multiverse. And
that could be a seed, for...
And he kind of did it.
No pun intended, since we're talking about something.
But he kind of did it with the whole 52, but or Earths, but not fully.
Who knows?
So,
Alexander Luthor could be the influence that's somehow controlling the Great Darkness. I think obviously that's I glossed over that when we got to the Swamp Things, because we already talked about the debate about how, because it's from that scene that it comes up that the Great Darkness isn't supposed to have a motive or have a purpose. It just is. It's just a simple thing that exists, and it's always going to exist, and that's okay. But it's being controlled and used for something. So it's this weird Ouroboros thing where, like, having it turn out to be Alexander Luthor is kind of fun, and it'll give me, I'll pop for it a little bit, and we'll have some fun reading it. But there is kind of this consuming thing of we're doing Alexander Luthor again in a crisis, with Pariah again in a crisis, it's always going to be revealed to be something it was before, instead of doing something genuinely kind of new with the concept.
Also, Williamson knows
his
continuity, and he knows his DC history, and I feel like that might just be a red herring, because I still don't know what could be, because Alexander Luthor could transmute matter and stuff, right? But for him to be able to wield the Great Darkness and beat Darkseid, that would put him at omnipotent godlike levels. And I don't know if that's the story. This here.
I will say this. I think whoever's controlling the Great Darkness, or whoever's infected it, I don't think that's a character who was already that powerful. I think it's someone who is now more powerful than they used to be, if that makes sense.
And I just think it's someone that's in the shadows. I don't think whoever can manipulate Pariah. But that's why I just think that it's them bringing Alexander Luthor up here, and then just that's what he wanted in Infinite Crisis, was to bring back his multiverse, because this Earth didn't deserve, and he weaponized Superboy Prime to punch reality and all that stuff. So I think similar goals, but someone's working Pariah.
Yeah. Well, it's worth mentioning, though, just to clarify, it's not necessarily directly influencing Pariah, because it was established last issue that Pariah's kind of got his own goals that are separate from the darkness that he thinks he can get away with. So there's something that's infected the Great Darkness, but Pariah might not be doing exactly what the Great Darkness wants. No, at least he thinks. I mean, maybe he's played into the Great Darkness's hand, or whoever's behind the Great Darkness, he's played into their hands. But
at the end of the day, he's just trying to bring his Earth back, right? That's his goal.
Well, not necessarily. Pariah right now wants to just create infinite Earths. He wants to make tons of them. I think my expectation, if it's not Alexander Luthor, is that whoever it is, hopefully is a surprise and the motive makes sense. But I don't think it's someone who already had this kind of omnipotent power. I think it's going to be someone who either died seemingly or went away in a previous event or big story that is being brought back for this, and is when I died, I went into the ether and I started to take control because now I'm not a man or anymore, whatever. Something like that. I mean, I don't know who, but
I don't know either. No one comes to mind, but I'm sure when it's all be revealed, we'll be like, okay.
I hope so, because there is a chance it will land That's it. Okay, all right. That's
Yeah.
you know, there's a chance it will not be a good reveal.
I would start bringing 0 Hour into stuff, but we'll get to that when we get to Flashpoint Beyond, because I feel like all the timey-wimey stuff that would normally handle that kind of stuff is happening over there now.
Yes.
So this is the one feeds into the other, but one just feels like not even an explainer, but it just they're separate, but they play into each other. So it's weird just how that's working right now.
Yeah. So I mean, this was an enjoyable middle chapter. I liked a lot of the interact. I liked Hal and Barry together. I liked the scene with Dick and Alan Scott, and I liked kind of the build to what's going on. But at the same time, like I totally get why, if you're sick of like crisis level events and stuff like that, if you're just not into this, like I would totally understand that it's kind of doing a greatest hits almost, and a lot of comic book events are kind of guilty of that. Like ever since the first one, in some way, they're always just kind of regurgitating what the original event kind of was. So, all right, Matt, what are you giving Dark Crisis?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
I'll just give it a straight 8, I think. We didn't talk too much about the art, other than just a little bit of Barry's introduction, but I do think Sampere is a really good artist, and the way he handles, Dick and Alan's scene, there's a really great thing there where, because it isn't all silhouette and shadows, but then Alan's light, his green light starts to, glow onto Dick's face and stuff like that. There's a lot of really nice kind of playing with the lights and the shadows in that scene in particular. And he gets to draw a lot of villains here, and they mostly look pretty great. Black Adam's scowling at Lex Luthor and vice versa and all that stuff. So, generally quite enjoyable. But there you go. That is the Dark Crisis issue 4. Batman 127, Chip Zdarsky writing with Jorge Jimenez on the art. So this is the third part of Failsafe, and we got the wacky reveal at the end of last issue that it wasn't technically it was Batman who created Failsafe, but it was another personality. It was the Batman of Xermanico who created Failsafe. And we learn about that here in this. We get a little flashback first, though, to just after or during Tower of Babel, with Superman being pissed that Batman had all these fail-safes in place for the Justice League, which thematically makes sense that we're kind of reminding us of that, and this is kind of his own for himself kind of idea.
Yeah, I like that Superman brings up though, like, you had everything for us but nothing for you, and so it's almost like Superman's kind of guilting him.
Oh yeah. I assume
created failsafe.
I assume this conversation is what inspired letting Xermanico create the failsafe. But so you get this Batman with Tim, and Tim's freaking out about the costume and what's going on, and there's a secret part of the cave that Tim didn't know about, that only Xermanico knew about, and he takes him down and explains that he built this failsafe, but he intentionally wiped his memory so that he couldn't deactivate it. So now he has to help, and obviously the idea with Xermanico is that he's Batman without Bruce Wayne. He's like it's Batman with all the humanity stripped away. So it's just purely the perfect war on crime machine.
Zero guide rails.
So, I was surprised how much I liked this issue, actually.
Okay.
Because I wasn't sure how to feel about the Xermanico thing. I was definitely curious. I was definitely on the hook to see what they did with it. But I think they have played into the idea of failsafe feeling like a Terminator these last 2 issues, and the way he keeps stalking them through the cave, they fight and just barely survive and get up into the mansion, and it keeps walking through the flames to come and get them. I really enjoyed all that stuff. I also really like that when they do eventually get up to the mansion, and the moment it snaps Batman into coming back, so it's the real Batman again and not just Xermanico, is when Xermanico basically is willing to dismiss and possibly even sacrifice Tim, and says he's just a soldier in his war, and then Batman internally says to Xermanico, "Shut up, he's my son," and then he sort of wakes up. It was hard not to if you're a fan of the Bat family and care about the connections between them, it's hard not to feel something for Batman actively calling the Robins his sons.
Yeah, and it almost feels like Zdarsky having commentary on the whole Frank Miller, the GD Batman, right? That's who Xermanico is that version. So the fact that it's Robin that's in the crossfire as it brings Bruce back into control, because that's who he is. So I did like that, especially when he, it goes from my son, and then that panel where it's at the top where he's in the Xernar cowl with the fire behind him, and it's a really cool page.
Yeah, there's a scene sort of in the middle of all this, before that part, where Dick's at the crime scene where the big fight happened last issue, and some of the Batgirls are being like tended to by medics and stuff. But Dick and Babs are talking on comms and basically say, like, we need help, we need backup. So it sort of sets up what the cliffhanger is going to be later, but worth mentioning that. Again, I love when the Bat books use the Bat family, and obviously this one uses Dick and Babs a bit, but it uses a lot of Tim here in a very effective, emotional way. Go back to the heart of everything. The idea that Failsafe's like damaging the portraits in the mansion, and it's when he's about to go to the Alfred one, where even Xermanico has to jump in and like, no, you stay away from Alfred. Like the idea that still is in there, even when it's Xermanico, is kind of interesting. But yeah, so you get this, and Jorge Jimenez's art is great. There's a lot of fighting in this, obviously. The unstoppable killing machine coming for him, all that stuff. The way that when it does go into his head, when Bruce kind of takes control again, when he yells, "He's my son," the idea that's in this infinite blackness as opposed to having a background, just give you that sense, and then you get that glorious, like you say, like the cowl scowling in front of the fire. So yeah, some great art. And there was a lot of great art in the last issue as well. Like Jimenez is doing a really good job in this run, I think.
Yeah.
And it's a testament to last issue that I still think last issue had better action sequences, but the one in this is no slouch. Like,
no, they're all, and it's all the action flows super well, right? And then the way that he has the layouts.
I mean, it says something that a month later I can tell you that I loved Failsafe pulling the cape down and Dick's entrance into the car chase. Like, I can remember specific panels from last month's issue, and I can't say that for most comics. Most comics, I can't do that. So that is very much worth saying. The detail when Failsafe punches...
it's like the little...
I was going to say, with the detail when Failsafe punches him in the face, and the mouth kind of all scrunches up. That's really good stuff.
Well, I was going to say that too, and like where he has him, and he picks him up, where he talks about that he's the original, and just the motion lines around Bruce. Nice little flourishes like that. But yeah, and then right after the next page is the scrunching of the mouth. Yeah. So.
And then he gets knocked down at one point, and he has this kind of moment where he's like, "Is this a good death? This is where all the memories of my sons and my parents and Alfred are all." And he's lying there, good as dead, Failsafe, and this is very Terminator. Failsafe walking through the fire, and staring down at him. It's very, very Terminator. And just at that moment, Bruce kind of like teases it in his narration that you can sense that he's here, but you get the super breath, and you get Superman saying, "Stay away from my friend," kind of thing. So that's the big cliffhanger. Superman's coming in to help save the day, which is interesting in that you would think Superman's going to be able to deal with this fairly easily. That said, there is a tease in the issue, because at one point Batman says, "Oh, I'll go for what's usually a weakness in androids, which is the knees." Right. And then he goes and it doesn't work, and he's like, "Shit, yeah, I thought of that," because I'm Batman.
Yeah, but if Superman doesn't have to be careful, that's not a human, and
true, it's a robot. You can let loose.
Yeah, he's kind of limitless in that, But I do like that Failsafe looks at him and says, "I urge you to fly away."
What I'm saying though is, what if he predicted that Superman might be a foe for it, and is prepared it with some kryptonite or something,
Yeah. I definitely feel this is gonna be a team effort to bring Failsafe down. That's what the point of this story is. As I feel that as lonely as Bruce feels, he's always surrounded by those that love him.
I think that's actually what I like about this issue as well, and making us think of Tower of Babel, because Tower of Babel, came from this really cynical place where Batman, had a failsafe for everyone else.
Yeah.
I think I like this idea that when the time comes where his failsafe is activated, but he's not guilty of, the idea that it's reinforcing everyone he's got around him trying to help him. So the entire Bat family are trying to help him. Superman showing up to try and help him. Wouldn't surprise me if there's more by the end of the story to come and try and help him. There's a heart to the story, actually, and it's actually very nice these last two issues, after I wasn't like, I liked the first issue of the run well enough, but it did kind of feel a bit more generic. And you had the robot with a generic design come out at the end. I think these last two issues have sold me on what the story's actually accomplishing, which is the heart of everyone else wanting to try and help Bruce. And the creation of Failsafe being, this alternate sort of personality that made it so that Bruce wouldn't know about it. And that's why he didn't know about it. He didn't forget. This was like the alternate voice in his brain that did it. So, all very interesting. I liked everything this Zdarsky's playing with. I think after just an okay first issue, I think the next two have been very, very good. So I'm into it.
I mean, between this and Tech, it's hard for me to hate on Batman right now. So,
which is a sentiment you've basically been sharing since we started this show. Because I'm nodding my head. They've had good teams on them.
Yeah.
But
like especially these two right now, like usually there'd be one I'm enjoying more than the other. And right now I feel like they're equal for the first time in a long time.
They're duking it out. I do think eventually one of them probably will be my favorite between the two, but right now I can't tell which it's going to be, which is good. It means it's a fair fight,
Yeah, because like when back at the beginning of Rebirth, when Tynan was doing Tech, that was the book, with King doing Batman. So then they go back and forth, and the Tynan did Batman, and that kind of pushed it up a little bit.
Generally, I was enjoying Tech more when Tamaki was on that versus Batman. So it goes back and forth depending, who's on what.
Definitely.
So no, main story's very good. Art's still excellent. I really enjoyed everything with the fire was great, and sort of really, it felt like very apocalyptic almost in a sense, the way this thing was just coming after him, and that maybe this idea that Batman's own cynicism will be his undoing, but all of his friends are there to stop it from succumbing to it, right? There's a really nice message there that his own psyche is what led to this, but it's his friends. It's a good analogy for mental health or or depression. The idea that those around you will help you get through it, and if you are your own worst enemy, it's those around you that care for you that are going to be there to help pull you up.
Right, and if you think you have to keep doing it on your own, you're going to keep, sinking deeper. So,
it's doing things. It's saying things. I love it. It's good stuff. What's funny, Matt? Last month, I read the backup to this and forgot to talk about it.
Yep. And so I didn't read that, and then I read this one, and I was very lost.
Okay, so the backup, I can't really tell you much about it last month, except most of the Cobblepot kids were dead. This one's quite important, though, because it reveals that Penguin faked his death and got plastic surgery and is now living in Metropolis, because Selina finds him, and he's like, he owns a flower shop, and he basically just didn't want to be in Gotham anymore. Talks about how, we're all night people in Gotham. He wanted to be out in the sunshine and be away from Batman and be away from everything. And he's still a bit evil at the end. He still kind of hopes that his kids who are still alive will take down Batman. But it does seem, at least for the time being, and I'm sure he'll be back to being Penguin before too long, because that's just the way comics are. But it does seem like, at least here, Zdarsky's like genuinely saying, no, he wanted to get out. He wanted to get away from the crime world in Gotham and just sort of go live a peaceful life. So... yeah, it's interesting. What I thought was funny is that he apparently got plastic surgery on his nose, Selina mentions, and I think he actually kind of looks like the Colin Farrell version of Penguin from the movie.
He does, a whole lot.
Yeah, without the pointy nose, so I thought that was interesting. So there was a little 3-part story setting up that Penguin is in fact alive, so possibly important for later when he shows up again. People might say, oh, but he died. I'm like, well, you should have read the backup. Kind of thing. Yeah. Because this was by Zdarsky. I don't know if the next backups are going to be by Zdarsky, but it says next on the backups is Xermanico Year 1, which is an interesting tease, I'd say. So
we'll get to see the origins of the Batman of Xermanico.
Yeah, so I'm cool with that. I wasn't in love with the art on the backup.
It's fine, but it's very like cartoony in that manga kind of way.
Yeah, it's got a bit of a manga swerve to it.
Yeah.
The art on the backup is Belen Ortega. So
Yeah, very kind of chunky in spots. Like some harsh angles, and then like the last page looks kind of weird, just like the proportions on Selena. So like it's not bad, it's just not my thing.
Yeah. So, a good issue of Batman though. I'm digging Zdarsky's run now that we're a couple into it, and I really feel like I'm getting what he's doing and saying about the character, which is great. So what are you giving Batman, Matt?
I mean, it's an 8.
Yeah, I think I'll go a notch higher and say 8.5. So very cool, very cool. All right. Next up, we got the new champion of Shazam, issue 2. Josie Campbell writing with Doc Shaner on the art. Really liked issue 1 of this. Was excited to get issue 2, and this might be even better than issue 1. Is my summation of it quickly.
This could end up being my favorite Shazam story of all time.
Woo!
If it keeps the quality, the stuff that it's doing with Mary, just because I get where her character's at here as like the put upon oldest kid, and maybe I'm just reading too much into it, as you know, that's how I felt my whole life. You know, her feeling the responsibility for the rest of the kids.
I said this after issue 1. I'm sad this is only 4 issues, and I really hope it gets a sequel, because it feels like it's really setting up a great new status quo for these characters. And it starts with this it's like a commercial for this community college that Mary's going to have to go to now, because she has to go back home, because she has to be the guardian. She has to, because she's 18, she has to look after the other kids now. Because that was the cliffhanger, was
because the Vasquezes are missing. I also love that it's Fawcett Community College. Anytime they can work the original city from Shazam in there. Yeah, nice.
So the parents went missing on their way home after dropping her off at the train station, and she talks to the police about it, and she sees the kids. It sort of reaffirms that Billy's not there, and some of the other status quos that are going on. But Darla's excited that she's back. She's happy that the Bunnies there, Hoppy's there, and that's like a running gag, is that Hoppy keeps sneaking into Mary's backpack throughout the issue. The art
her always being surprised is a great joke.
Oh yeah, and the art here is great. There's a great face on Mary. It's after she's talking to Pedro, who's kind of like confrontational with her a little bit.
Yeah,
and he leaves. At the bottom of this, Darla says something like, "Oh, after we find Mom and Dad, you can stay here and we'll be together. We're always supposed to be." And because she knows she actually wants to leave as soon as she finds them and solves all this problem again, the look in her face in the bottom of that page, that last panel, is wonderful. This sort of oh shucks kind of, how do I break this to her kind of face. Fantastic. Shaner is on fire, and Josie Campbell, for a writer I don't think I'd heard of before issue 1 of this. I really like her voice for these characters, and just I love the clean look of the art. Everything about it, it feels like it's got a vibe where the art and the writing are just marrying perfectly.
They work together so well.
Yeah, it's really good stuff. So she runs into Eugene, because Eugene's actually taking some early college classes, because he's like a brainchild, and she's a little offended when he's like, maybe don't talk to me when we're I've got a new reputation as being like this cool smart kid, so because I'm hanging out with all these college students.
He's the high school kid.
Jesus, man.
I'm so sorry. He's the high school kid that I'm sure they're all being nice to him, but he has an inflated ego. Right, because they all think he's a genius, which I thought was pretty funny. Because it's starting to feel like each of the kids are kind of falling into those kind of 7 Deadly Sins vibes of each of the, which is a good villain or like an original villain of Captain Marvel / Shazam. And I felt the pride coming through Eugene here.
Yeah, no, I loved it. This issue, obviously, last issue was so Mary focused, but this issue gets to bring in a lot of the other kids, and we get a kind of sense of them right now. So I'm glad that they're still part of the world, but you have this thing where Mary is the only one with the powers now. The rest of the kids don't have that anymore. So, I think that's really cool. So when she's in class and the lecturers try to talk about stuff, there's a car accident outside, and Mary runs off to go be a superhero, as you do. And it's a giant alligator who after the first time she punches it, which is it's a great panel of her punching this alligator. It's like an uppercut. It's great stuff. The alligator sprouts wings. This giant alligator sprouts wings and starts flying around. And so we get like a scene where she's flying through the sky after this. It's very pulpy, it's very silly, but very fun. I love that panel where it connects to the bank robbers from the last issue because it's being controlled by the same sort of phone app thing. But there's a great panel where she's standing like right in front of the alligator. So it's got this perspective thing where she's just right in front of the nose, and the alligator's looking right at us effectively. Really good stuff. And then like these villains that either are also controlled or part of what's going on and behind the alligator attack show up and fight Mary, and they've got electric powers, and they end up frying poor Hoppy. And for the rest of the issue, like you see Hoppy burned and singed and like barely moving, and Mary's like holding him and saying, "Are you okay?" and like hugging the bunny in her arms. It's hard not to feel things during all this.
Well, and the way that she says, "Oh, Hoppy," and then she hugs him, I was like, oh man, I really care about this rabbit.
Yeah, it's all really good. It really makes you hate the villains, who are basically just in silhouette except these like phone lights on their chest.
Yeah, and it seems like they're marrying technology and magic because they're using these phones, right? And like we find out that this crocodile or alligator creature is saying "help me," right? And he has one of those things in him. And it's just like, well, yeah, what's going on? Because then when they close the loop, right, like it fries her magic. So there's like big things going on here.
Yeah. So yeah, it means that it's something that she's going to have a tough time fighting. It won't just be easy. Yeah. So it gives her a challenge, gives her something to overcome, which is good. The next little thread that's introduced is that the press come up and talk to her, and they're like, "Oh, you're a new superhero," and I'm like, "Well, she's not really. She's kind of been around, but whatever." And she says, "Oh, like, are you part of a team? What is your name?" Like, and asks a bunch of questions, and Mary like panics and just says she has to go. And the issue ends with her noticing that there's a lot of missing people in the neighborhood, and it's not just her parents that are gone. And it sort of ends with her sort of a call to action that she has to not only find her foster parents but find everyone who's missing, and that there's something really bad going on. So this is a good issue because it puts her back in her own community. It puts her back in with her family of characters that she cares about, and then by the end establishes that the stakes are higher than it just being a personal thing, and she has to actually become a hero now. It's like, it's one thing like, oh, she hears a car accident, she has to go off and like save some lives who are in jeopardy. It's another thing to notice that something's wrong and actively seek it out and try and solve the crime or the problem, solve the mystery, so I dug it. I love Mary getting the spotlight. I think it's great. And her becoming this kind of, she's always been the bigger sister, but this idea that she's becoming the actual guardian of the other kids is really cool.
Yeah, because Billy does a lot of that heavy lifting when he's Shazam, right? That he gets to be the guardian of them, and now she actually has to, and she has to step up, and her trying to balance her her future, and while also doing this is a nice twist, because I feel like everyone's been at that point in their lives where like they want to go on to different things, but they also feel that tug to back to their old life.
I think that's part of what the story is here. It's about Mary's coming of age as well, and so many people want to do things when they reach this kind of age, but maybe can't because they can't afford it or because there's circumstances that don't let them do what they want. So there's kind of this sort of metaphor of responsibility and creeping in. So I am curious to see how, when it ends, like what the final messaging and where it leaves her off.
Yeah.
But I'm loving it, and I really do hope that there's more of it after this 4-issue mini. And so in some way, a sequel, miniseries, whatever it is. Yeah.
And just Shayna's art is so crisp, and it just matches the tone of the characters.
It's a joy to look at. And I think Shayna's flatter colors and like solid line work is very good for something that wants to feel pulpy and Silver Age.
Yep.
And Shazam, by its nature, because of the type of characters it has, kind of lends itself to that.
Yep.
So
yeah.
Yeah, loving it.
Yeah.
All right, what are you giving Shazam, or new champion of Shazam, I should say?
I'm giving this one a 9.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Straight 9 from me as well. I think it's an excellent comic book. And if you have any kind of like, loving your heart for these characters, but even if you don't, I think it might make you like Mary Marvel. It might make you like this section of the DC universe. One that's solely been underrepresented for a long time, really.
Very long time.
So
and then it's been like starts and stops as far as I can remember.
Yeah,
so that's why when I say like it's my favorite Shazam story I can remember, it's just because it's been so inconsistent. I tend to like more than I don't.
When I say it's been underrepresented, I'm including when it had a book, because when it had a book, it only lasted like 16 issues or whatever, and it was delayed a lot. There was a lot of problems, in terms of that were creeping in, so on. We had the backups in New 52, but like Shazam has been so off and on for such a long time, and I think part of it is struggling to find its identity when the powers can be compared to Superman, and I think that was a problem they faced for a long time at DC. Was how do we separate Shazam from Superman and sort of make it have its own identity? And I do think books like this nail it and nail what's different about these characters. But I think for a long time that was like a problem, and I think it was so like ignored for such a long time that it just became more and more of a niche character, where a Shazam book is never going to sell like the big characters. Not without, like, I don't think the current movies that are coming out obviously are good enough to do it. I think if there was an excellent movie and then you had like a good like all-star creative team do a book whilst the interest was high, maybe you could elevate it to that status. But I've seen it done from time to time. Geoff Johns elevated Green Lantern, for example, but that's like the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, but even then, like Green Lantern had the whole Kyle stuff before they relaunched the Hal stuff under Johns, so they had a pretty consistent like footprint, even in the comics. So whereas I feel like with Shazam, like he was only really in Justice Society, like when I can go back and think.
In the 2000s, I mean, I'm sure there was a couple of minis somewhere, but I don't remember.
Yeah, well, like one of the ones that really made me like the character was there was a Superman Shazam team up called First Thunder, and it was basically them teaming up and deciding that when it's sciencey stuff, Superman will get involved, but when it's magic, Superman can call Shazam in. And it was a nice little 4-issue. I forget who wrote it and who drew it, but it was a fun read. And that's what kind of turned me on to the character. And then trying to find Shazam stuff, it was just basically JSA at that point. So I'm happy to have this. I really like Mary, like coming from 52. Her story through that was one of my favorites. So, yeah.
That's cool. But there you go. That's a new champion of Shazam. It's very good. Nothing super exciting from the panels yet. Just to check in here. Short Round's going to be in Loki season 2. That's like, maybe a bit.
I'm excited about that. The guy that did WandaVision is directing Fantastic Four, which is kind of like, okay.
That was not. I mean, maybe they confirmed it today, but that was kind of known for a couple of weeks, I think.
I did not know that, but I'm also not tapped into news, so I was shocked. But maybe it'll have that old school vibe that I enjoyed in WandaVision for the beginning. I don't know, because I kind of do want a Silver Agey Fantastic Four movie, so maybe he's the right guy. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. It doesn't sound like they've really announced, but there's a couple of trailers that have come out. Secret Invasion got a trailer, but no big earth-shattering announcements as of yet.
No,
so.
But I am after seeing Everything Everywhere All at Once. I'm glad that Jonathan Key-Kwan is getting his career back up and running. So.
Oh yeah, he was excellent in that movie.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't realize he was a stunt coordinator for a while. Like he went straight from a kid actor to like, I'm gonna work in stunts now, which is super cool. And that's what he had been doing for a long time. And then they brought him in for the movie, which he was really, really, really good at. So yeah, excited to see who he plays in Loki.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Flashpoint Beyond issue 5, Geoff Johns with Jeremy Adams and Tim Sheridan writing, with Xermanico and Mikel Janin on the art. Do you know what stuck out to me about this issue early on? The first like 3 or 4 pages are a bit of a chore to get through because they're very exposition heavy and they're explaining the omniverse, the continuum, hypertime versus the metaverse and the multiverse.
Started to feel like a textbook, and I like this stuff.
Right. This is what occurred to me though, is I'm reading this stuff and I'm going, all these ideas feel super Geoff Johns, but I think what I get from this though is he clearly did not script these pages. This is obviously all his ideas, but the other writers, whatever one it is that's doing these pages specifically, are the ones actually writing the dialogue and explaining it. And I think this shows you how good Johns is at taking these weird concepts and making them digestible.
Yeah. So what I mean is, it felt like a textbook. It felt like I was taking all this information in, and like I love like hypertime, continuity, multiverse, omniverse, all that stuff, the history of the DC universe. But just reading it was very dry, and I was just like, oh man, and like you're right. I feel like Geoff Johns handed them his notebook and went, "Here you guys go," and they're like, "Okay, how are we gonna do this?" And you know, Adams, as we've seen in Flash, seems to handle the multiverse aspect pretty well. It's when hypertime starts to get involved and it gets all timey-wimey. I feel that's when brains get broken.
Well, hypertime is such a weird concept here, and in the way it's explained here, because there's a debate, this is in the real world, there's a debate between Dr. Baxter from the Time Masters and Mr. Terrific on a TV show, and she's explained that hypertime is like basically multiple timelines being created via choices rather than there being different universes, and it's kind of like an emotional thing, emotional divergences rather than different universes, and how that's separate from the omniverse, which has multiverses in it. And it's like, okay, all right, you know, at this point we're getting a little bit convoluted, but you assume that hypertime is more to do with what this Flashpoint world that Thomas Wayne's in rather than the other stuff. I don't actually think this is going to tie up that much with Dark Crisis. It is interesting though that this book starts with saying 2 days after Dark Crisis, and I'm like, oh, that's weird given that we're not finished that book yet. They're just casually saying that.
And they're talking about hypertime, like that there are these branches from emotional stuff, and it's like, okay, so if Barry went and stopped, you know, whatever he did he saved his mom, right? And that's what led to Flashpoint. So that was a decision that he made. So that didn't create an Earth. So now they're in an alternate timeline, not an alternate Earth. That's how I'm understanding the concept of this book now. So that's how Dr. Batman could go back, because he wasn't going back to an Earth. He was going back to a timeline.
Yes, kind of. Okay. Yes.
Okay. Timey-wimey, it's not Back to the Future rule, so I think,
well, we can talk later about what the actual, where the timeline diverged, because there's an actual reason for it later. But, yeah, so, and then we get Batman talking to Ra's al Ghul in the real world, although Ra's al Ghul is notably more classic Ra's al Ghul rather than the Ra's al Ghul would be getting in Robin. Just ignore that.
And the last time we saw Ra's al Ghul, he got killed.
Yeah, so let's just ignore all that. I mean, maybe Dark Crisis brings it back.
That's what I'm thinking. And that's what I feel like there's a little wink of, you know, from the creators being like, guys, it's a crisis. We're going to reset things.
I mean, to be fair, his first line is, let's drink to your miraculous return, Bruce, when Ra's al Ghul's the one who's miraculously returned. I mean, technically Batman did too, because the Justice League all died and came back. Yeah, but, you know,
but yeah, you're right. It's almost Batman animated series. Ra's.
So yeah, basically, you know, Raz talks about Thomas Wayne, not the real Thomas Wayne, but like the Flashpoint Doctor. Thomas Wayne. Yeah. And well, the real Thomas Wayne's also a doctor.
I was gonna say Dr. Batman, but I don't want to keep interrupting.
So he's like, you can still save him. You know, he's still somewhere. And then we finally, because this is the first time we've spent a lot of time outside of the Flashpoint world until you know, this issue. But we go in and Batman's racing to Arkham, where we know, you know, Martha Joker is with Gilda
Dexter
and Dexter. Yes, and Batman comes in. You know, they're fighting. There's a great big 2-page spread of him crashing through the window, and all these different like classic Batman stories are in the little shards of glass. It's an interesting.
I like that because they're all like big moments from Batman's history.
Yeah.
So I like that, and you look through, and it looks like it's the actual art. You know, it's not Xermanico doing you know, homages. So I thought that I like when they do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So a couple of things here is that it implies that you know Gilda, killed her own daughter, like the evil side of her, and that maybe Dexter's in trouble. Thomas doesn't care though, because he thinks he's going to reset the universe anyway, so no one matters. So he's just going after Martha. They fight a bit, but then she kind of gets into sort of like revealing how she survived and how she heard a voice that turned out to be Psycho Pirate after she was left for dead. And she learned about hypertime, and she learned about timelines, and she learned about the the real universe, as it were, where Bruce became Batman, and how much like Thomas has had motivation for a long time, Martha Joker, for as crazy as she is, wants to also fix things so that Bruce gets to be the one that lives. Because in all of her craziness, she still wants to die to save her son. That's still a fundamental part of her.
Yep, she's still his mother and wants the best for him, for the kid that she lost.
So. It feels like Thomas is probably going to end up wanting to help her and team up with her.
Yeah.
To be honest, is kind of the way I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But she's built it looks just like the snow globe that Batman's had in his hand at the end of the issues.
Yeah, the snow globe, but also it looks like one of the Time Master's time bubbles that the Legion also uses.
Well, yeah. Obviously, it's much bigger, but I'm just saying that it's intentionally. There's this page where you see them side by side, and it's meant to be kind of mirroring each other. And. Yeah, then the issue just kind of ends with Rip Hunter finally showing up and saying that he has to stop Batman from doing what he's doing. Yeah. So that's basically it. It's funny. This is a weird issue because we kind of enjoyed this book for just being kind of silly and doing weird things. This issue has less of that because it's getting more to the crux of things. And I don't necessarily hate the concepts of what it's doing, but I do think that the writing team who's doing this, based on Johnsy's like directions, aren't as good at actually writing all these weird concepts as John's is. So the start of the issue was definitely a chore to get through, and that was a bit of a shame. And it doesn't have the silly stupidity that I was like cackling about in the last few issues. So that's kind of weird. Also, I am 100% sure this was solicited as a issue 0 and then issue 1 through 5, and then all of a sudden this says 5 of 6 on the cover. And there's at least one more.
Yeah.
When did this happen? Because this started off as a 5-issue thing. Well, 6 technically, including the 0 issue.
Yeah. But... I'll have to dig through my books and see, because I have them physically, and see if what it says on issue 1. But no, I really liked it because it became this, like, as you said, the silly story that we were kind of laughing at, being like, all right, we're going to keep reading to see how crazy it gets. For me, for a continuity nerd like me, them bringing in the hyper time and how that interplays with the omniverse and how they're different, and like, I like all that. And then we got, that other, I forget where we saw it originally, but Rip Hunter's chalkboard. Was that in the 0, or was that in like a setup to something?
It might have been in the 0 issue. If it wasn't, it was definitely one of the early images that were kind of like promoting this book, because we saw parts of it then, but there's like teases of stuff to come in the DCU. Some of it's clearly teasing stuff that Johns is going to do in JSA. Some of it's more broad and talking about other things.
Well, it's just stuff like, the whole 5G verted, and then there's, they almost look like strike throughs, but they're gunshots, I feel, instead. But it's just things like, the fall of the Justice League, the rise of the Legacy League. And I'm like, okay, is that John's group? Is that the ones that we saw that were kind of from Future State? Why is Deathstroke not acting like Deathstroke? I remember talking about that, when we had read that chalkboard, with the imposter question mark, was like, well, we know it's the Great Darkness. And then curiously enough, it says the Great Darkness wants nothing, which I read this after I read Crisis.
Yeah, it syncs up with Crisis.
And it syncs up super, super well. His daughter will rejoin the Justice Society to save it.
The other thing is, this was originally, like I say, it was meant to be issue 0, then 1 through 5. And it was originally going to be like either weekly or every other week. And then it was only for a short time. It was meant to be that quick. And then just before issue 1 came out, it said, no, it's monthly now. And clearly something changed, because the fact that this is referencing effectively this week's issue of Dark Crisis means that they reworked some things to tie into the rest of the universe, and clearly also added an issue somewhere along the lines to stretch it out into one more. Which I think maybe when they started doing this, Johns didn't know he was coming back on to do a couple of books ongoing again. And maybe there's some more setup here for some of his stuff, or maybe I don't know, but whatever it is, this has been kind of a weird book. It's been interesting. If at times a bit of a chore because the writing, and I have to assume Sheridan's the one that's I don't like here because Adams has been fine on Flash.
Yeah.
So, not as good as John's in his prime, obviously. I mean, I'm not saying that, but I don't have this. Oh my god, this is a chore to read when I read Jeremy Adams written comic.
No, definitely. So, but it's also all the timey-wimey type stuff too that I have to stop and think about. So when you start getting the Time Masters and all this other stuff, it doesn't help when it's super dry to read, too.
Yeah.
So but no, and even the Martha Joker stuff I really enjoyed, just because it's a nice twist on the whole Batman Joker dynamic, where they actually they actually might see eye to eye on something.
So, it's kind of a mixed bag in some ways, but there's definitely some interesting ideas in there. Having the two artists, obviously, it's mainly Xermanico. Although there is more Janin in this issue because there's more, and there's more in the real world, as it were. So, I should say Earth Prime or Earth Zero, whatever you might call it.
So, what is getting me is I wonder if they're going to split them next time, because I feel like we've gotten more Janin as we go. Just by a little bit, so I wonder if by this one it'll split between the Earths, by the last issue.
Yeah. All right. There you go. We given Flashpoint Beyond.
I'm gonna give this a 7.5.
Yeah, I'll give it a 7. I found I have to mark it down a bit just because that first 4 pages, whatever it was just a bit of a chore to get through. But yeah, I can't say I'm not into like these wacky Johns concepts, and knowing that we're getting a couple of Johns books, these JSA books that are coming, does make me excited, and to make me a bit more invested. So,
for sure,
good stuff. All right, Poison Ivy issue 4, G. Wilson writing with Marcio Takara on the art. Matt, what you got?
Okay, so I had to get caught up, so I read issue 3. Issue 3, Pam meets this lady, and they end up hitting it off because she's a gardener. And it starts to make Pam kind of question her motive of like infecting everybody with this fungus spore. But of course, they're still bad in the world, and she's still going to go through with it. This issue starts with her going to like a job interview where she's, there's a typical middle management type dude interviewing her and basically telling her that this job is your life. We're all about efficiency. There's no, there's no breaks, no sitting down. If you're gonna pee, do it into a bottle. If you're gonna do the other thing, do it at home. And it's all just very like not good working conditions. And she ends up getting the job. She accepts it, and she ends up with these coworkers, and they're all kind of scared to not hold up their end of the deal. Because of they need this job. Pam sees it through the hallucinations that she's having through this fungus that's affecting her as, just kind of like an endless nothing. And so we find out that she is going to use working, because they're dealing with like a lot of mailing packages, that she's going to put the spores in these packages and mail them across the country. And that's how she's gonna, spread the fungus. She sees the middle management guy get a little bit too touchy with the girl that she works with. And she starts questioning the employees, and they're like, oh yeah, he does this all the time. The last person to speak up, lost their job. And so Jocelyn, who's the girl that she's, befriended, she's like, no, I'm going to go deal with this. So she goes to talk to the dude, kicks the door in, knocks him down, and says basically like, you're going to, I just infected you with this deadly spore. You're not going to be alive in a couple hours. So in that time, you're going to, make these workers' lives better. Through all of this, Takara's art goes from like very clean and kind of bouncy lines to when like the infections and stuff happen, it gets super chaotic. And like when he, when she knocks him down and infects him with it. He asks, "What are you, some kind of monster?" And she goes, "There's only one monster in this room, George." He goes, "And it's you." But when he looks up at her, she was like this crazy looking nightmare plant creature. But he ends up, giving kind of everybody what they want, and she goes back and lets them know, like, "Oh, you're not gonna have to worry about him anymore." And then the girl Jessalyn, turns around and kisses her, and her and Ivy go off together, and they end up going back to a room and hooking up. But as Pam's doing this, it looks like you're reading from her journal, and she says that this reminded her of you, and you turn the page and there's like the specter of Harley Quinn, and she starts basically talking to Harley through this journal that she blamed her for things that weren't her fault, that she was just looking out for her, and that she loves her, and that she's sorry that she's doing this. And now she's having second doubts that, like, I've seen kind of that there's other ways to go about this. I don't have to end humanity to save the planet. I just have to get in and change things from the inside. And that she's decided that she wants to live. So she's laying in bed next to Jessalyn. She springs up, and there's a green creature standing over her, and she says the green man's found her. And now she knows that these aren't just hallucinations. Someone is actively trying to stop her. Now, is this Swamp Thing? Is it Woodrue? Is it someone new? We don't know, but he says the green man, the thing that comes after her, says the green man knows everything, Pamela. And she destroys it. Tells Jessalyn it's better if you never forgot, if you never met me. She gets in her van and says that she's coming after him. Thoroughly enjoying this book. It's a little bit, because we know from the solicits that there's going to be more issues. The pacing definitely feels off, because these feel like kind of not one shots, but like instead of a one cohesive story, they feel like little vignettes of Pam's journey. To now, it almost feels like there's a structure now that she's going to face off with the Green Man. But so through the first four were basically her interactions with humanity and learning things about them different, and making her almost question herself, because she's back to being, the human Pamela with, flourishes of the green. Takara's art, I can't get over enough. In any other week that didn't have, a Jimenez and a Shaner, it might be up there, because it's really fantastic. The colors pop, it going from this, bouncy, round, clean lines to like this chaotic, almost not hypnotic. What's the word? That's not a word. Hallucinate's not a word. A hallucinogenic type vibes is super cool. But yeah, I'm gonna give this an 8.
All right, cool. That's Poison Ivy issue 4. Just updates on some news from the panel.
Ooh, what we got?
A couple, probably the two biggest things, because I think they're almost done, is the villain in the next Captain America is the leader. He's finally coming back after 15 years from Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
Seems relatively a big deal.
Yeah. Is it Tim Blake Nelson though?
Yeah, he's back.
Cool.
And they revealed the lineup for Thunderbolts, which is Yelena, Red Guardian, Bucky, Ghost from Ant-Man and Wasp, US Agent from Falcon Winter Soldier, and who was the other one? And there was one more. I'll go back and look.
Definitely getting Dark Avenger vibes more than Thunderbolts, but that's okay.
Oh, Taskmaster was the other one.
Okay. Wow.
So
curious that Bucky and US Agent are going to be on the same team. I feel friction.
It does feel like half of those aren't really villains. So it's more of a It's more of a just a sort of more of a slightly darker than the good guys team than it is a team of villains.
Even Red Guardian wasn't a full he's much more of a hero than even an anti-hero.
And Ghost, I mean, I do not remember anything from the second Ant-Man movie, but was Ghost kind of sympathetic by the end, I want to say?
Yeah. She was trapped through a thing, and got phasing, so they had to,
So the only
They end up fixing her.
So the only one who is not sympathetic in any way so far is Taskmaster.
Well, no, but she was. If you remember Black Widow.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm forgetting. I wasn't thinking of how that ended.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of U.S. Agent because we see that he has a dark side that he's embracing, which Wyatt Russell for me.
But he made some choices at the end of that show that he kind of had a bit of a redemption at the end. So everyone here feels like they're already kind of at least on a good side of anti-hero.
Yeah. Yeah. Although I can see some things flipping. But yeah, Bucky, a lot of human characters too. A lot of just straight up not a lot of superheroes.
Well, U.S. Agent's obviously getting enhanced strength, so does Bucky because of super soldiers. Right. And Red Guardian does too. He's strong too, isn't he?
That's right.
So
yeah, but they're all very. My point is, they're all very samesies.
The only one that's got outright powers other than just being stronger is Ghost, who can phase and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm here for that one though. I generally like the majority of those characters. I really like Yelena, but that might just be Florence Pugh.
I think most of Phase 4 has been pretty dull and boring, but I do think Florence Pugh is pretty much always a delight to watch. I do like some of these other actors that are in some of these roles, so I think it'll probably be a very watchable movie, if nothing else. I think it's interesting though that most of these characters are either from the TV shows or from I'll say B tier movies, shall I say? It feels like a lot.
Not gonna argue.
It feels like a lot of characters who weren't in big projects before, who might feel bigger because they've been given this movie together to be their starring vehicle. But
and I like Wyatt Russell, and maybe under a different creative team from Falcon and Winter Soldier, he'll be able to shine more, kind of be a little bit hateable as U.S. Agent. But I just like him, so we'll see how it goes.
So
also David Harbour as Red Guardian, probably going to be good highlight. But yeah, a lot of Black Widow characters in this.
Yeah, I mean you got
Red Guardian.
You got Winter Soldier and US Agent both from Falcon and Winter Soldier, so you get 2 from that. You've got 3 from Black Widow, and you've got 1 from Ant-Man 2. That's your set of characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I still haven't found the motivation to watch either Doctor Strange 2 or Thor Love and Thunder yet. So I mean, we'll see how much I care when it comes out.
My good brother Jared told me he didn't really enjoy the first half of Love and Thunder, and I was just like, oh man. So
I don't think I'm going to like it that much, to be honest.
Maybe did you like what was this one? Jojo Rabbit?
I think Jojo Rabbit's easily his best movie.
Okay, so it's more Jojo Rabbit than Ragnarok. It definitely has the tone shifts of Jojo Rabbit, but kind of inverted, where this is a lot more comedic with tones of darkness versus darkness with tones of comedic.
Yeah,
so,
I feel like you're setting me up for failure here, even making me think it's going to be remotely as good as Jojo Rabbit.
No. I'm talking in the structure, because Jojo Rabbit's much different subject material, right, than Love and Thunder. But I will say Love and Thunder had some very strong moments. It really nails the Aaron stuff that I like. It makes some differences just for the sake of being a movie versus like a series. But it nailed the Aaron stuff that I enjoyed of the character. But it's definitely more Taika than Jojo Rabbit was. So take that as you will. You're probably gonna be middle on it because you're middle on Ragnarok. So but this is definitely different than Ragnarok. Like it's not all Taika projects are the same, which I kind of like from him.
Yeah. Oh.
What's this?
It's far more interesting than all this Marvel shit. Avatar 4's filming. James Cameron is talking to the crowd. Avatar 4 is filming right now.
I'll believe it when I hear 3's in the can.
3's already in the can?
Yeah, but like when I get a trailer for it, because I still don't believe 2's happening.
Just got a trailer. You've seen the trailer for 2.
I've seen the trailer for 2, but I've also seen the trailer for movies that never came out.
This is not some Warner Discovery, shack that's cancelling projects last minute, okay? Like, Avatar 2 is coming out, damn it.
I just like to tease you about it, because,
Yes. It is interesting. A couple of new photos, but it is interesting. Just like like 4's already going, and like 2's just about to come out. 3's already been shot entirely and being prepped for like I think the current release date's 2 years after 2, because the plan was to have Star Wars movies every other year, but obviously they all got cancelled, so or delayed. So
yeah,
I mean, who knows? Who knows? I can't believe they started with Avatar though. If you think that'd be the big one that they end with.
It is D23, and that's not a proper Disney. You know, they acquired that.
No, I just mean out of the 20th century section.
Gotcha.
Because they're on the 20th century block now. So I think it's interesting they're starting with that when, maybe they have
Cameron was
something.
there, maybe he had stuff to do.
He's not there. I think he's on a video stream. Yeah. Well, he's too busy making more movies. He spent too long before he came back to making movies again. Now he has to devote all of his time to make sure he knocks out all 18 Avatar movies before he croaks.
18.
Yeah. So. Still. All right. I'll check in before we wrap up, but we do have another bit to talk about. So Dark Knights of Steel, Tales from the Three Kingdoms, issue 1. Various creators, because there's 3 stories in it, so we'll tell you as we go. First story is a Tom Taylor story though. So it's annual sized. You basically get like a 20-page regular issue and then 2 10-page stories, give or take. Mm-hmm. So and they're all stories set in the past when the characters were younger. The first one is a story. It turns out to be a Man-Bat story. But it starts with Jimmy Olsen, who's friends with a young Harvey Dent and Oswald Cobblepot.
So there's in the city that they live in, there's the Arkham Orphanage, and Jimmy gets adopted by the Whites, which I love that. But yeah, while he's there, he's friends with an Oswald and a Harvey.
Did they say this is in the town of Gotham?
It wasn't Gotham. Okay, I couldn't remember which kingdom it was in. Yeah. But yeah, and so he gets adopted, and he feels bad for leaving his friends by, and but it reassures him that things are going to work out. Perry gives Jimmy a telescope to tell him to look at the skies, and he ends up making friends with a young Cal, which I always love how the stuff kind of plays out. The one thing I'll say about even all these 3 stories, it definitely kind of kills the villain vibes for Cal and Zala, seeing kind of how pure as children they are, So it tells me that Taylor has an ace up his sleeve when it comes to some reveals coming up. But so he ends up meeting this Jimmy, and Jimmy shows him the spyglass, and they talk about how Cal can already see distances, and in the telescope or spyglass, he can see the whole universe. And it was these really nice kid moments between them.
Yeah, I will say I'm not super into the art on this first story. The art is...
I like this. Is the Casper Wingard? Yeah. I like it.
It's just
what don't you like about it?
It's just not my taste. I think it's just a little too...
It felt very storybooky to me.
Yeah, storybook, maybe a touch of manga. I don't know. I wasn't feeling...
Yeah, I was definitely getting more. So there's been other Wingard art that... I think Connor's a big Wingard fan.
Of course he is.
Yeah, and there was other stories that in anthologies or one shot that they did that I was like, this is good. It's not my taste. But I feel here, just with the medieval stuff, I feel it really worked, because again, it had that storybook feeling to me. That the very soft edges in the coloring felt that way too. So, but yeah.
Anyway, so basically, when Jimmy goes missing, Cal wants to look into it. Bruce ends up tagging along, as does Zala. So they go and investigate. It all just turns out that there's a mad scientist lady at the orphanage. Because it's kind of up until this point, you're thinking, some winged creature who turns out to be Man-Bat has kidnapped the kids. But it turns out, no, he's not kidnapped them. He saved them from the orphanage, because there's a crazy, Arkham doctor who Elizabeth Arkham's doing experiments on them, and that's basically it. And the ending is that Amanda Waller kind of employs her to do her own shady experiments behind the scenes.
How good is Tom Taylor at telling these stories that are so different, but also so spot on with the characters. Because of course Waller would be reaching out to the mad scientist that was experimenting on kids.
Yeah. So it's okay. Like I think this one shot I think is pleasant enough, and maybe because I wasn't super into the art in the first story,
Could be.
dragged it down a little bit. I thought the heart was in the right place.
Yeah.
It did feel though like unlike say the one shot we got for Human Target, which felt like this really essential kind of like window into what was going on. This felt a lot more like, oh, we need something to kind of like do a one shot. So it feels more like it. This feels less essential and very skippable if you don't want to bother reading this and just go straight into issue 7 of.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like at least with Human Target, there might be something that ties in at the end to what he did, because all of those are
maybe. It's just that it's hard to sort of quantify this, but it's just this feeling of somehow Tom King made that one shot feel super important and like I was getting like an essential part of everything. This feels like even just the Tom Taylor story, but even the 2 backups, which are kind of like, here's just some nice stories set in the back, the backstory of these characters. The second story, which is J. Christoph writing and was that Sean Isaacs on art. This is basically Bruce and Cal with Harley going out for Halloween in costume. And Bruce has got like a cowl, Clark puts on glasses. It's just kind of.
I love that Bruce's like spectacles aren't a disguise.
Yeah,
that killed me.
It's a little cutesy. The story here is that the Robins are like a gang of kids who steal from the well-off to like help feed the poor. Ties into Robin Hood, which is a nice little touch. But Bruce sort of recognizes this, catches Dick, and offers them a job. It's basically just how Bruce met the Robins in this universe.
Yeah,
effectively.
I do love that Jason and Steph are yelling at each other. Yeah, because again, that was spot on. I thought that was funny. And then there's like, but you won't catch all of us. And then Tim goes, yeah, he caught all of us. I thought that was real funny.
It was a delightful enough little thing. Yeah. So that's cool. And then the final story, which focuses more on just Bruce, and it's basically how he met Bane when he was a teenager, or even younger actually. And Bane trains Bruce, teaches him how to fight, because he's loyal to the Waynes and wants to assassinate the L's. But the big cliffhanger of this is that after he trains Bruce and they go in to attack the L's, Bruce turns on him and pledges allegiance to the L's. And Bane's like carried off. And it also sets up that Bane's like venom here is kind of magic based, and this is further reinforcing the idea of how Bruce learned to hate magic, and like magic's a threat to the L's, so I'm going to seek out and destroy any magic users.
Yeah, I like what they did with Bane here. They're calling him Kingsbane, and he was a Black Knight, and that he survived the Green Man's attack that killed the Waynes, and so he wanted to get, he wanted to uphold and reinstall a Wayne on the throne. Well, I like all that type of stuff. But just him being like, oh, the L's, they're from the sky, so that means they're bad. That kind of fell apart for me. Because it wasn't the L's that attacked, it was the Green Man. So, I could understand if he held the L's like at, responsible, like, oh, if it wasn't for the L's, they wouldn't have been on that, and we wouldn't have been there, and now I have to reinstall the rightful heir, so nothing like this can happen again. But it just kind of fell apart. But I did like that the venom was magic, and then Bruce's sudden yet inevitable betrayal kind of cracked me up because he just cut the venom lines. As a 12-year-old. So.
Yeah, that last story was by C.S. Pacat on writing and Michelle Bandini on the art. I just thought this one shot was okay overall. I didn't necessarily love any of the stories. It was kind of cutesy, which is nice, but it's like I kind of like had that realization when we saw it in Solicits last month. I'm like, wait, where has this book been? It's been a while since we had that last issue, and obviously it's been on this break, and probably for the better, so the artists can stay more consistent and all that. But that's just kind of feel like a little filler one shot to kind of tide us over, which is okay. But I left it to last, and it read quick and easy enough. Like, I'm not going to say it for like a chore to read, but there was a little bit of a like when I was like halfway through it, I was kind of like, okay, I'm just kind of like doing this to get it done now, as opposed to really being excited about it.
Yeah, I was running behind today because I played football too late and I'd eat breakfast, and I told Pete, like, I'll be up. I have to read this. And then I was like, oh yeah, Pete's not that big. Like, it's Taylor, but he's kind of in and out in the book. If he's not going to read it, I can. He's like, no, I'm reading it right now. I was like, oh shit, okay. So,
yeah, especially since you said you were running late. I definitely have time, so I sat down and read it. Yeah. So yeah, I still feel that passionate about it.
It was good. Like, I'm not upset that I bought it. I did enjoy the Taylor story. I enjoyed all three of them to different levels, but you're right. If we're comparing it to Human Target definitely felt like not a necessary piece, but what's the word I'm looking for? Where it's on the side. Yeah, but it'll add to it, but it's not necessary. I forget the name.
Complementary.
Thank you. It's complimentary, whereas this just felt like extra. Like, you don't need it. It's fine. But I get the vibe just from who these kids were, right? Because they're all stories from when they were younger. It doesn't line up with the story that we're reading, and I feel like there's a purpose for that. Because Taylor is a very gifted writer, and I don't feel like he'd just be willy-nilly telling fun little cutesy stories here or not there. So, but yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, what are you giving it? What are you giving one shot?
I'm gonna give this one a 7. Mixed bag.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little harsh and say 6. I just I kind of swam through it without really giving much of a toss, and that's all I've really got for it.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favorite stuff of the week, favorite panel / moment, favorite cover, favorite art, and our top 5 books. And I read 5 books, so everything's making it. Certainly. So, what was your panel / moment of the week?
So I wanted to pull something from Dark Crisis, but I felt like there's a whole lot of stuff in there. But there was one image that really stuck out to me, and that's Superman showing up in Batman.
Oh yeah.
Jimenez's art, with the way that it plays with all the light around Superman into the shadows of him putting out the fire. It's poster worthy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of. I think by default, I almost have to just go with "He's my son." Like that. That moment in Batman just kind of stuck out to me. So I think I'll go with that. As far as covers go, shout out to the main cover for New Champion of Shazam. Shayna's cover is wonderful, and it's Mary holding up all the kids and family on her back. So it's really nice. But I have to go with one of the variants for Batman, which is the Gabriel Dell'Otto variant, which is just this beautiful painted thing of Batman in the sewer looking hurt. Sometimes you just there's just a cover that appeals to you. But what's your cover of the week?
So I want to shout out the Garrett's cover for Flashpoint Beyond with the Two-Face thing going on. I think that's a super cool image. But being that I read Ivy this week, I feel like I got to give her some credit. And there's a lot of fun covers. There's a 1 in 25 Zoe Thorogood that looks really cool. And then there's, I'm going to try to say this name, Soza Micah. It's cover C, the cardstock variant. That's nice. But the Jenny Frisian variant for Ivy, it's got her with like a laurel of roses around her, and just that Jenny Frisian style is spectacular. So that's my cover.
Cool, yeah. There's also a pretty cool cover for Batman. It's Catwoman. It's and Hayek Lee did the variant.
Okay.
Oh, it's pretty nice.
I didn't even look at the Dark Crisis one, so I'm gonna look at those real quick.
Yeah. Okay. What about art of the week?
Is there any question that it's Shaner?
No, it's not. I mean, obviously Jimenez was great on Batman, but Doc Shaner wins.
Yep.
Just complete shot to the heart.
Yeah. Shouts to Takara too on another week, maybe, but Shaner, Jimenez. Who's on Dark Crisis? Is it Sampere?
Sampere, yeah.
Yeah, Sampere's solid. Both artists on Flashpoint Beyond. So we were embarrassed with good art this week.
Yeah, but yeah, I have to say Shaner takes it with a bullet. So that takes us on to top 5 books of the week. Matt, go.
I'm gonna go Shazam 1. I'm gonna go Dark Crisis 2. Batman 3, Ivy 4, and Flashpoint Beyond 5.
Yeah, number 1 for me is New Champion of Shazam. Number 2 is Batman 127. Number 3 is Dark Crisis. Number 4 is Flashpoint Beyond, I guess. And number 5 is Dark Knights of Steel, one shot. So, kind of easy to do for me this week. It just kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
But there you go. I will take this time now to tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. So let's have a look-see. We have Wonder Woman 791, Superman Son of Kal-El issue 15, Batman Urban Legends issue 19, Batgirls issue 10, Jurassic League issue 5, Batman vs. Robin issue 1, new Mark Waid book. It's always nice to see.
I'm here for that.
We got I Am Batman issue 13. We got Dark Crisis World Without a Justice League, Wonder Woman issue 1. Who's on this one, actually? Let's have a quick peek.
I'm looking it up. I want to say it's Stephanie Phillips, but I might be wrong.
No, it's Teenie Howard.
Teenie Howard, okay.
Teenie Howard and Dan Waters are the writing the two stories.
And Dan Waters is doing the Martian Manhunter. Oh, that might be worth it to read alone.
Mm-hmm. And then also next week we got Future State Gotham issue 17, The Flash, The Fastest Man Alive issue 1. Is this the one that's maybe tying into the movie?
Yeah.
I think it is.
So just throw it into a fire.
Yeah. Batman Hush, Batman Day special. Oh, it's Batman Day next week? Oh.
Sure.
Isn't it always the Saturday? Because I feel it's always when we record, it's Batman Day.
Yeah, maybe that's why they're putting it out, though. Well, maybe today's Batman Day. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't seen anything about it. So yeah, highlights for me next week. Definitely the new Mark Waid book's my number 1 thing. And, you know, Batgirls has really been growing on me. I do think it's been getting better, so I'll say about that.
So I was going to be out on Wonder Woman, but do you see who's on the cover?
I see maybe a Cheetah, maybe a Barbara Ann variety.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to read this one. I'm just, see how it goes.
You don't have a lot of books next week, though, so you may as well.
No, and that's why I'm doing it, mainly. But yeah, I am a sucker for Barbara Ann.
You can tell because you can tell we're on a cusp of a lot of new books launching because it does feel a little bit light week to week right now. Mm-hmm. But we know we've got a bunch of stuff launching in October, November. So, yeah, good things are coming, people. Good things are coming. So I will take this time to thank our Patreon producers for the month. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Placius, David Sharp, Boardnow, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M4 Dice. They are all on our producer tier or higher over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, where you can go and support the show and help make sure it keeps coming out forever and ever and ever. And at the $5 tier in particular, you get early access. You get it whenever it's ready on the Saturday night, as opposed to having to wait for the Sunday. If that's of interest, go and have a look. You can also support us by hitting the super thanks button. Oh no, you can't do that on this channel. You can go over to MailFuzz TV or MailFuzz Movies on those YouTube channels and hit the super thanks button if you want. But you can like, subscribe, ding the bell, share out the audio, of course, rate the audio podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from. All those things do help out a lot. So please do so. Get us on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast, and you can check out all that stuff. Also catch me on Twitch if you want to. Twitch.tv/MailFuzzTV. We have fun over there. We play video games. We do watch parties for movies, things like that, if that's of interest. But otherwise, that is pretty much us. That is episode 322 of the show. Hopefully you had a good time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.
And if you do, Hyper Time will fix itself. You'll be fine.